The more you say yes, the less they respect you. The more you try to explain, the more they push further. But the moment you say no, calmly, clearly, without apology, something shifts. They lean in, they chase, they start craving what you just made scarce. That's the power of cold rejection. No drama, no anger, no explanation, just a silent boundary. That says, you don't have access to me anymore. And that silence, it burns louder than any argument, because nothing is more attractive than someone who doesn't need to be accepted. In this video, you'll learn how to use rejection, not as defense, but as domination, to control the emotional frame, to trigger pursuit, and to walk away without losing power. 1. Why cold rejection works. Most people think rejection pushes others away, but cold rejection does something different. It doesn't push, it pulls. Because rejection, when done right, triggers obsession, not because you hurt them, but because you disrupted their control. Human psychology is wired to crave closure, to complete loops, to restore balance. But cold rejection offers none of that. No closure, no comfort, no permission to fix things, just a calm, unshakable silence that forces the other person to confront a new, unfamiliar truth. You no longer need them. That's where the power begins. When you say no without apology, you create scarcity, and scarcity creates value. What's easy to get is easy to ignore. What's rare becomes magnetic. Cold rejection removes access, and the moment access disappears, attention increases. Suddenly, you're no longer predictable, no longer safe, no longer theirs. And that uncertainty becomes irresistible, but it goes deeper. Cold rejection also triggers ego disruption, especially for manipulators. They're used to controlling the flow, used to your compliance, your explanations, your reactions, but now you offer none of that. You just pull away. No drama, no defense, and that silence. It fractures their self-perception. Why aren't they chasing? Why aren't they explaining? Did I lose control? That confusion becomes craving, not for you, but for what you've taken away. Certainty, validation, emotional dominance. This is why cold rejection works. It's not about punishing them, it's about resetting the frame. You're no longer trying to be accepted. You've become the one who decides access. And that shift makes all the difference. 2. The difference between hot vs cold rejection. Not all rejection is created equal. In fact, most people reject in ways that give away their power. They reject emotionally, defensively, with pain in their voice and fire in their words. That's hot rejection. Hot rejection. It sounds like, I'm done with you. I've had enough. You don't deserve me. I can't believe you would do this. It's loud, reactive, full of wounded energy. Even when you're walking away, you're still entangled. You're still explaining, still proving, still bleeding emotionally. And the other person, they feed on that energy, because hot rejection says, you still affect me. You still have power over how I feel. That's not rejection. That's emotional leakage, and they know it. Cold rejection. Now compare that to cold rejection. No raised voice, no accusations, no drama, no need to be right. Just silence, detachment, distance, no emotional investment, no performance, no chase. It sounds like nothing. And that silence, it speaks volumes. I no longer need this. I no longer play this game. You have no access to me. This is rejection without apology, without justification, without a wound, just a locked gate. And a calm face walking away. The difference is simple. Hot rejection seeks closure. Cold rejection creates craving. Hot rejection says, I want you to know how much you hurt me. Cold rejection says, you're not important enough for a response. And that difference destroys the manipulator's control. Because when they can't pull emotion from you, they can't feed, they can't reframe, they can't escalate, they can't win. This is why cold rejection is feared and secretly respected. Because it doesn't scream, it declares. It doesn't wound, it repositions. And in that quiet shift, you go from being the one they managed to the one they can't reach. 3 to 5 psychological effects of cold rejection. Cold rejection doesn't just end conversations. It opens loops in the mind. It triggers hidden fears. It repositions power without ever explaining itself. Let's break down the 5 psychological effects that make cold rejection such a devastating weapon. 1. Scarcity trigger. The moment you pull away without emotion, you become scarce, and the human brain craves what it can't easily access. It associates scarcity with value. You're no longer always available, no longer reactive, no longer easy, and that lack of access increases desire. Even if they didn't value you before, your absence makes them question what they lost, because people rarely notice your presence until it's no longer guaranteed. 2. Ego disruption. Most people live with the belief that they can affect others, especially manipulators. They expect a reaction, a reply, an emotional response. But cold rejection gives them none. Just stillness, silence, a closed door. This creates ego collapse. Because the feedback loop they depend on is broken. They're used to being in control. Now they're invisible to you. That invisible status? It bruises the ego deeper than confrontation ever could. 3. Unfinished loop effect. The brain hates unresolved outcomes. It craves completion. It wants to close every story, but when you reject coldly, with no closure, no explanation, no signal, you create a mental loop that keeps spinning. They start replaying every interaction, second-guessing every word, trying to figure you out. This loop becomes an obsession, not because you're magical, but because you're incomplete, and the mind chases what it doesn't understand. 4. Perceived self-sufficiency. Cold rejection radiates one message: I don't need you. That triggers a deep insecurity in others, especially those who feed on being needed. Your emotional detachment signals power, stability, autonomy. And the more stable you seem, the more unstable they feel. You're not begging, not justifying, not proving your worth. You're already gone. And that unbothered energy makes them desperate to get a reaction back. 5. Energy. Withdrawal. Manipulators feed on your energy, your attention, your words, your emotion. But cold rejection isn't just silence, it's energy withdrawal. You're not just gone physically, you're gone energetically. They feel it, and it leaves a void, one they try to fill, with texts, calls, arguments, bait. But nothing works. And in that stillness, they realize they were never in control. They were just feeding off your response. Now, you've cut the line, and they're left talking to their own echo. Cold rejection is not emotional warfare. It's energetic dominance. Because when you can walk away, without noise, without need, without weakness, you stop being someone to win over and become someone they can't forget. 4. How to execute cold rejection. Cold rejection isn't a reaction, it's a decision, a calculated shift in energy. That sends a clear message, without a single emotional leak. Here's how to execute it, with precision. 1. Don't just say no, say nothing. The real power of cold rejection comes from absence, not resistance. You don't fight, you don't justify, you don't explain, you simply stop giving access to your time, your attention, your energy. Most people reject by reacting. You reject by disappearing, mentally and emotionally. 2. Stop explaining your boundaries. Every time you explain, you invite negotiation. I'm saying no because I just need space, because I don't feel comfortable, because... Cut that. Cold rejection doesn't seek understanding. It asserts reality. This doesn't work for me. I'm no longer available for this dynamic. I wish you well. Take care. One sentence, then silence. No follow-up, no softening, no open door. 3. Don't fix the emotional fallout. They'll push, act confused, play victim, accuse you of being heartless. Your job? Stay still. You are not their therapist. You are not responsible for their processing. You are not here to soothe the person you had to walk away from. Let them feel what they tried to project onto you. Cold rejection says, I'm not afraid of your discomfort anymore. 4. Be unreachable without bitterness. Cold is not cruel. It's just clear. You're not rejecting with hate. You're rejecting with indifference. You don't send mixed signals. You don't leave windows half open. You don't hover in their orbit, hoping they'll change. You walk dash, and your silence closes every door behind you. That neutrality, that absence of emotion, it's what makes the rejection powerful, because they expect fire. You give them ice, and ice is harder to break. 5. Anchor into your internal frame. Cold rejection only works if your energy stays aligned, if deep down you're still seeking approval. They'll feel it. If you're secretly hoping they come back, they'll sense it. Your power is not just in what you do, but in what you no longer need. The moment you stop chasing validation, your rejection becomes permanent. And that's when it leaves the deepest mark. You don't need to raise your voice to be heard. You don't need to prove anything to be respected. Sometimes the most powerful message is nothing. 5. Who deserves cold rejection? Not everyone deserves an explanation. Not everyone deserves closure. And definitely, not everyone deserves access to your energy. Some people only respond to silence, because they've learned how to twist every word you say. So who deserves cold rejection? Let's be clear. 1. People who repeatedly cross boundaries. You've asked, you've explained, you've been patient, and they still push, still test, still act confused. They're not confused, they just don't respect the limits unless they're enforced. These are the people you stop warning. You start walking silently, finally. 2. People who weaponize guilt or kindness. They act like they care. They act like they're hurt. But their words are traps, designed to make you feel like the villain, for protecting yourself. They use phrases like, "I thought you were better than this. After everything I did for you, you've really changed." Exactly, you have. And that's why you no longer play by their emotional games. Cold rejection teaches them you no longer negotiate through guilt. 3. People who assume access is forever. These are the ones who take you for granted, the ones who think you'll always be there, who drain your time, your focus, your attention, because you never said enough until now. Cold rejection reminds them your presence is a privilege, not a given. The moment they feel entitled to you is the moment they need to feel your absence. 4. People who create chaos to stay relevant. They start fires, just to be the one to put them out. They provoke, then play victim. They disrupt peace, just to stay at the center of your emotional attention. These people don't need confrontation, they need silence. You don't explain your exit. You vanish and let their chaos collapse without your energy. You owe no one access to your peace, to your mind, to your emotional bandwidth. Cold rejection isn't punishment, it's protection. 6. Final CTA. Cold rejection isn't about ego. It's not about winning. It's about control. Control of your energy. Control of your emotional access. Control of who gets to stand close and who gets locked out. Because every time you reject with silence, you do more than walk away. You rewrite the power dynamic. You stop trying to be understood. You stop explaining yourself into exhaustion. You stop waiting for someone to finally respect you. Instead, you make your absence the message, no noise, no breakdown, just gone. And in that space, you become unforgettable. From this moment on, you stop being easy to reach. You stop rewarding disrespect with availability. You stop negotiating with chaos. And when they ask why, you say nothing, because the truth is already loud enough. In the next video, you'll uncover how some people never use guilt, anger, or control directly, but still manage to manipulate you completely. They pull your emotional strings silently, subtly, effectively. It's called the puppet effect, how they pull your strings without you knowing. And once you see it, you'll never be controlled the same way again.